when I woke up, I remember everything that I drank up until the time where I woke up in the hotel. I just remember hanging out with those African guys. That's the last thing I remember. When I woke up, I felt like I had drunk a bottle of Hennessy, okay? And to me, it didn't really make any sense. I was disoriented, I was confused, and I was just like, I don't even remember drinking like that. I was lost. And so when I finally get dressed and I go outside, not only did I see text messages from my friend, I also see text messages from a 212 number on my phone. It's the guy. Obviously it has to be the guy because I didn't talk to anybody else. At least I don't think so. I don't remember. And he's saying, I had to leave for work, but I paid for the extra time for you to stay into the room. So I'm like, who the fuck is this nigga? I remember meeting those African guys because we actually exchanged like WhatsApps. I remember that clear as day. I looked up their numbers and I compared it to his, and I'm like, it wasn't the same number. I was texting this guy and I was like, I don't remember meeting you. And he was like, oh, it's okay. You know, I have sisters. I know how it is when you get drunk and you meet somebody. And I'm like, I don't remember getting drunk at all. I said, where did I meet you? So he told me that he was security at the club that we went to and that we took a round of shots. And I'm like, so I asked my friend, I'm like, do we take a round of shots with some guy? Do we meet? He was like, no. So in my mind, I'm just like, how do we go from hanging out, you went to the bathroom, to me meeting a security guard in the party, taking a shot, and from what the security guard describes, he said that I got drunk and that I left with him to go in a cab. I told him that I lived in Brooklyn. So he went to that motel and he said I was all over him in the cab. Like I couldn't get enough of him, blah, 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 blah. And we went to the motel and had sex. And I'm just like, I don't remember what the fuck this guy is talking about. Never in my motherfucking life, and I don't judge anybody. I've never left a club with a nigga. At this age, I'm 36. I've never done it. Never. And so I'm just like, what he's telling me, I'm just like, is this really me? Did I really do this? What he's telling me doesn't correlate to what my friend is even saying. So then I asked him, I said, well, can you send me a picture of what you look like? Because honestly, I don't remember. So this nigga fucking sends me a photo of me. I was passed out in that fucking photo. And I was on my stomach, vagina like spread wide open. And you know, my ass is out. He's taking a picture like, yeah. So I'm like, again, I don't recognize who this nigga is. And then I'm just like, yo, if that's him in the photo, who the fuck is taking the picture? It was two people in that room. So now I'm in my mind like, what the fuck is going on? Did I have sex with two people? Like, y'all don't understand the amount of shame and fear that I felt in my fucking body. After he told me that story, I didn't want to go back to Brooklyn. So the day of Halloween, me and my friend, I had helped him move from Brooklyn, move all his things into his boyfriend's apartment in Harlem. That's how I really even ended up in the city to begin with. So although I was in Brooklyn where I was, my car was all the way in fucking Harlem. Never intended to go back to Brooklyn, at least not this way. Fortunately, because I still have my purse, my wallet, I had to end up taking the train from Brooklyn, in Coney Island, Brooklyn, all the way back to Harlem in my cop uniform. And I was so fucking embarrassed. I felt like a prostitute. I was dressed in thigh-high boots in my cop uniform. Yes, it was a day after Halloween, but it's a day after Halloween. There's kids on this train. I'm looking like, in my opinion, like a streetwalker. And I'm also feeling like it too because I was in a motel where prostitution takes place. And so I just felt like the lowest of the fucking low. And I didn't say anything on the train. Thank God I even still had that hat that I was wearing that night. I think I had my glasses, and I just literally closed my eyes and I had silent tears rolling down my cheek. I get back to Harlem, I get to my friend, I'm like, yo, what happened? I said, this guy's texting me. I said, did we meet a guy? He was like, no, he reiterated the same thing that he had told me in the text message, that I went to the bathroom, I came back, you were gone. I told my friend, I said, can I take a bath? I said, I feel disgusting. I don't know what's going on, but I can't, like, I feel sick. I go into the bath, I'm silent, and I'm trying to like conjure up memories of like of the night before, and all I can remember is laughing with those African guys. That's all I can remember. And then, you know, just to be fully transparent, you know, I had gone through like a really bad breakup, and it was very traumatic, to be honest. Because of that, I hadn't had any sexual contact for a very long time. I'm talking about years. I remember getting in the bathtub, and I put my fingers in my vagina. And I was like, yo. Like, somehow was inside me. And I just remember, I just like sobbed. I was just like, oh my God. I felt so sick. Because honestly, I just still couldn't believe, I was like, I let somebody inside of me that I don't know, that I don't remember. Like, and I'm like, there's two people. I'm like, was there two people? Or was somebody just in there taking the pictures? And did they have more video? Like, was my vagina all on their phone? Like, I was frightened. I asked my friend again, I was like, yo, did we get high? Did we take drugs? He was like, no. And I'm just like, I don't understand. I was like, why don't I remember anything? And I was like, I would need to go to the hospital. But like, I had felt so sick. I had felt so disgusted. And I honestly, like, I didn't have anything in my stomach because I hadn't eaten the night that much before. So even after, when I got back to his house, I actually ended up throwing up like the rest of the night. And so that's another reason why I didn't even end up going to the hospital until like the next day. I went to the hospital the next day. I told them what happened. But to be honest, I feel so stupid. And I'm a nurse, you know? I know what to ask, I know what to say. If I feel like there's a sexual assault, or I feel like I've been touched. But at that point in that time, to be quite frank, I was so confused. His face doesn't look familiar. My friend doesn't recognize his face. I'm like, this guy, I'm not understanding. And that's honestly what made me want to do an investigation. And I didn't even go to the hospital. I'm sorry, I went to my doctor's office. And I should have went to the hospital, but I was more so concerned about having STDs, and I wasn't allowed to shame because I kind of believe what he said. I mean, because I honestly didn't know what to go off of. After I got tested, I think that Wednesday or Thursday, at that time I was working in the clinic, and me and my friend, we worked together, we were both off. So that's when we ended up going to the police station, and then they transported me over to the Special Victims Unit in Brooklyn. After I provided all the information that I could, I gave them the HIPAA form to sign to get the records to my doctor's office with all my medical records, and gave them an account of like what happened. And I thought, you know, with my friend being there, that would help. But to be honest, it didn't really mean or do anything. After going to my doctor's office that day and talking to some of my friends, they actually urged me to go and file a report. Because honestly, I was very scared. And no, I'm not a heavy drinker, but I can certainly handle a couple of rum and cokes and some white Hennessy. I even thought about, I was like, yo, you were just in Jamaica 2 weeks ago. Pounding drinks, sorry mom. I still remember what happened and how crazy I got. And I was like, yo, I said, this motherfucker is lying. And so I went to the precinct. I told my friend later that week, I said, we have to go. And I was like, I need you to tell them everything that transpired. I said every single thing. I said, do not hold anything back. I said, because I don't want anything coming out and say, oh, hey, we held something. I said, no, tell them every single thing. And I made sure I told them every single thing. And I gave them my medical records. They did the control call. But to be honest, even though I did all those things, you know, I try to stay hopeful that, you know, hey, they're going to do something. But in the back of my mind, in the way they talked to me, I didn't really feel that way. And then my suspicions were confirmed because I didn't think the cops are gonna do anything, even though I reported to them. I was like, I'm gonna do my own fucking investigation. I actually had made plans to meet the guy. I told him, I said, hey, I want to meet you. I just tried to keep it casual. I never told the cops that I did this, that we're investigating, and I thought that I could catch this guy in a lie, and I don't know who the fuck I thought it was. Actually, I'm not even sure how I did it because I ended up dropping my phone like that following week, and I couldn't even see all the messages that were on his phone. I was actually like calling from my coworker's phone. She had no clue why I was even calling from her phone. I was actually messaging my friends from my iPad at the time, and she was like, are you fucking stupid? And I was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, why the fuck would you go meet him? So he could go and do something else to you or tell you some stupid shit. And then when she said that, I was like, you're right. So I ended up standing him up because we were supposed to be. Because I had ended up standing him up, he started sending me like threatening, vulgar text messages. I was like, that's when I was like, I knew this fucking lying ass motherfucker was lying his fucking ass off. Cause then it became a whole fucking different story. He started calling me all kinds of sluts and hoes and a bitch. It was fuck you, bitch. That's why I fucked you, bitch. And he started reading out my government name, my address that I had on my driver's license. And like, I'm just like, yo, what the fuck? I said, for somebody who claimed that, oh, he had 4 sisters and he would never judge me and da-da-da-da, now I'm all coming like, and you fucked me? So my friend that was with me that night, I sent him the text messages and I told him what he was saying. And I asked him, because at the time, his boyfriend at the time was also a lawyer. And I'm like, you know, what should I do? I was like, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? His boyfriend told me I should still tell the cops, which I did, and to block him. So I ended up blocking him. I tried to tell the cops. Like I told y'all heard in the story. I had called the cops with voicemails, nothing. They're MIA. On top of that, after he sent me those messages, I blocked him on my phone. But then I didn't realize that when you block somebody on your phone that you have to block them on WhatsApp as well. And that's why a year later, he was able to message me on WhatsApp saying, I miss fucking you on Halloween. So because of that, I felt unsettled for a very long time. Because in my mind, I'm like, he knows my full name. He has my address. He knows who I am, where I am. I honestly felt like I had to be a ghost. I just made sure my life was fucking private. I became so paranoid and anxious. I didn't know what to do. I tried to go and get help. And that's when I realized how hard it really was to go and get help. And then I remember actually trying to go to support groups to get help. And finding support groups is actually not as easy as I thought it would be. These support groups, they're not like AA meetings where you can just go walk in, or that's how they present it on TV. These are meetings that actually are scheduled. They're done at certain times with only a few amount of people in them. And they actually interview you before you go to these meetings because they want to make sure that you're committed, that you can attend the meetings, that you're taking it serious, which I do appreciate. Some of the groups are also very specific, like if you were a victim of child sexual assault or if it was just violence. And so not all of these groups apply to your case. I will never forget, I was turned down. So I was supposed to meet with the counselor, and at that time I was working nights. And I knew I was gonna be late because I got off of work late. And so I rescheduled with her. And then the next time I went to go see her, I was late. And she told me because I was late and I had to reschedule the previous meeting that she didn't think I was going to be committed enough to go to the meetings every week. And I remember calling my mom sobbing because I was just like, Mom, all I want is help. All I want is help. I don't know what to do. And I was like, nobody will take me. So it's like you not only feel like low because you're in the situation, the cops don't fuck with you, and now the people that are supposed to help with you don't fuck with you either. That's how you feel. My phone died. which I'm kind of glad that it did because I was starting to cry. Not only was I trying to get into groups, I was calling organizations. At that time, I was living in Brooklyn. I remember calling one organization, the phone just kept ringing and ringing. And I think eventually I just kind of gave up because I was just like, I was already tired of getting up every single day and having to like deal with what was going on and the cops not doing shit. It's exhausting looking for help. Can't seem to get into a group. It's not the right time to get into the group. I gotta wait till next year. They're not answering the phone. I was like, yo, like, I'm just gonna be miserable forever. I started therapy for my sexual assault. I was seeing a therapist before this incident even occurred. And that's part of the reason why I feel like my life was getting a little better. But once I continued with that therapy, I realized that my therapist, he wasn't versed in sexual assault and rape. So eventually I had to end up leaving him. He actually also suggested himself because he realized that he could not help me. Because of that, he referred me to a psychiatrist. And I had never been to a psychiatrist before. And she was immediately trying to give me medication. And I was like, whoa. First she had asked me, she said, are you on any drugs? And I was like, no, I mean, I smoke weed. And she said, well, you can't do that. And at that time, I'm not even gonna lie to you, because I was struggling so much, weed makes me sleepy. So I used to smoke weed to like make me fall asleep so I wouldn't have to deal with anything that I was going through. I'm just gonna be real. Because I'm sleeping, I'm going to sleep, waking up, eating, doing the same thing all over again until I have to go to work. And so she told me, she was like, oh, doing drugs isn't good. I mean, which I understood, which is fine. You know, I don't want to be somebody who's using anything to make me feel better or to cope. In the next hand, she was also trying to give me some drugs to help me manage what I was going through. And I was like, no, I that's not what I want. And so that's when I realized, I was like, oh, I don't know if it was just her, but that's when I realized that psychiatrists, you really will go to a psychiatrist when you need to take medication because therapy isn't working for you. But I also recognized in that moment that the therapist I was seeing, he wasn't specializing in therapy that related to sexual assault rape victims. If you are a survivor or a victim of sexual assault, then you want to make sure that you're going to somebody who specializes in that, because if not, they're not going to really be able to help you. I really did not want to take medication because I refused to be taking medication for depression or anything psychotic. I didn't want to be labeled, and not to say there's anything wrong with that. As it will for me personally, I didn't want a stigma placed on me because I know how it is as a nurse. When I'm applying for a job, especially because I am a nurse, you may not get that job because you have a psych hit. Like, I don't care what anybody tells you. They're all lying, and they use that as a prerequisite. And so I just didn't want that to interfere with anything that I had going on professionally. And so that was it for her, and I cut out the weed. So for a little while, honestly, I just kind of gave up. And I was honestly content with that. It was hard enough getting out of bed versus calling to get help. It was easier just staying in my misery. Once May hit and the officer told me that he wasn't gonna do shit, I think it was later that month or in like June, my father ended up coming from Nigeria. I hadn't seen him in like 5 years. I was like, this cannot be the first thing that I tell my father. Because to be honest, he told me that he didn't like me being in New York. Because at that time, when I first moved to New York, it was like 2012. Both of my cousins were living there, and I was staying with them. And, you know, my mom didn't want me to come to New York either, to be honest. But she felt comfortable because my cousin was out here. But once they both left. My mom still, like, she wasn't saying anything because I was, like, in nursing school and started my nursing career. But my father straight up told me, he was like, you don't have any family. He said, if something ever happens to you, he was like, you don't have anybody to lean on. And I was like, no, that's not true. I have my friends out here, and they'll be there for me, and da-da-da-da. And he was like, no, it's not the same. And then my dad gets up here. He has a heart attack, a walking heart attack. He always had this crazy cough that was just like, but my uncle was like, yo, your cough is getting worse. And he had to have emergency triple bypass surgery. And so not only am I trying to take care of myself mentally and physically, but I also have to take care of my father. And mind you, you know, I don't have any family up in New York. Fortunately, I did have, like, my sisters were able to come up, and family were able to come in periodically. But for the most part, it was just me. I don't really have anybody else helping me, like, deal with the situation and talking to me day by day. You know, I was happy not to really be dealing with certain things in regards to my rape and sexual assault and not having to think about it, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, it is a lot easier to just let things go than to really work for it. And at that time, it was so hard to work to be happy. I didn't really have it in me. I used all my energy and I used my father's illness as an excuse just to focus on something else so that I didn't have to really deal with what was going on. At that time, I mean, I think I probably knew that, but I didn't care as much because I was just trying to take it day by day. All those things really affected me because I realized, I was like, man, my dad was right. I really am by myself. Because once my family left, it was just me and him. I didn't have friends that were helping me and saying, hey, Val, I know you're going through this. Do you need something with your dad? Hey, Val, what's going on with this? I know you're going, like, nothing. It was crickets over here. And so that made me feel even worse. It made me feel even more unwanted. I mean, I honestly already had felt shame. I had already felt disgusted. I had already felt like I was nothing after that situation. But then, like, to feel like you don't have anybody around you, you feel like nobody cares, it made me feel even worse. I didn't feel worthy at all. And so because I didn't feel worthy, to be honest, I didn't really say anything. I just kept going on and I just kept taking care of my dad. And it was easier to do that. Even after he got out of the hospital and he stayed with me for months and I had family there, you know, I never told any of them what was going on. And I sure as hell was not going to tell my dad at this point because he just had a heart attack. And so eventually he ended up leaving after he got better for a while and went back to Nigeria. That's when shit really hit the fan. My dad was gone, and it's not like I had somebody to fill up my space. Like, I was really by myself. I was forced to really think about what happened to me. I don't know, it hit me really hard. I became super anxious, always looking over my back to see if somebody was following me, because remember at this time I still didn't know who this person was, or maybe all my pages private on social media. I didn't really go out like that. If I did go out, I just made sure, I just always try to put myself in places I wasn't gonna be seen. Even at the gym, like, I wouldn't go on at times where I know there's a lot of people. It wasn't until, like, honestly, like maybe like 2022 where I finally was like really able to like look men in their eyes like that for real. It took me a while to finally feel okay and to be free. Honestly, what really made me finally get out of the slump was I picked up a knife. I put it to my wrist. When I did that, I realized I was really in trouble. Because growing up, I was always told if you like kill yourself, that you're gonna go to hell. And so I called my sister, I think it was Laura, and Nina, I don't remember. They were like, come home. And I drove like straight home to Delaware. And I stayed with my family that weekend. And they helped me bring myself back pretty much. I realized, like, yo, I really have to go and try to find help. What even made me honestly go to work too was I didn't want to be homeless. I knew if I stopped going to work, I'm like, who's gonna pay my rent? I know who's gonna pay my bills. And then I'm gonna get kicked out of this apartment. And then I'm gonna lose my job. And I was like, damn, I'm like, that's how people end up homeless. I was like, I mean, I could ask my mom, but my mom got other kids. Like, she's people she takes care of. I didn't want to put that responsibility on my mom. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. Those are the things that really made me not go like deep under. I just didn't want to hit rock bottom. Like I felt like I was rock bottom, but I felt like, would you rather be rock bottom here, or would you rather be rock bottom on a cold ass street? And so I just like slowly but surely picked myself up. And honestly, like, the only reason, just to be truthful, that I was even able to do those things because of God. I remember asking God, I was like, what am I supposed to do? When this shit went down, I really felt like really alone. I didn't really have anybody around me like that. And so I was just like, but then if I go home to Delaware, it's like, you know, I don't want to be near my mom. Because, I mean, she felt bad, and, you know, I was talking to her every single day, and like I said again, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even have been where I was in that situation. I wouldn't be alive. After a while, I started to become like, well, I know this happened, but you know, your loan bill is due. Life didn't stop. I still had bills. I still had things I had to do. To be honest, this is why I get so upset and annoyed when people make comments about rape victims suing their assailants. This had to be sometime during the Me Too movement. I think it was Joe Budden's podcast. I can't remember, but it was Joe Budden, Remy Ma, and 2 other people. And Remy Ma was saying something to the effect of when rape victims, quote unquote, sue their assailants, that it shoots down their credibility. Because in her eyes, they're suing their accuser for money. And I was just like, yo, are you fucking serious? I was like, I wish I could sue my fucking accuser. I wish every single fucking day that I didn't have to get up to go to work. I wish every single fucking day that I didn't have to turn over. Every single day was a struggle to fucking get up, to want to live. But I knew if I didn't go to work, that I was gonna be homeless. I would not have anywhere to live. I wouldn't have a job. I would nowhere to live. I wish I could have sued my assailant so I could just go and get help. I wanted to take FMLA so bad, but you know what happens to FMLA at that time in New York? $0. You get nothing to your account. So I could take off from my job, but I'm not going to be able to get paid. So yes, I wish I could have sued my assailant. I wish I could have got the motherfucker for some goddamn money. When Cassie had to sue Diddy, did anybody have an issue with it? Fuck no. Because you know what? That man tortured that girl for fucking years. He kept her from personal and business relationships, i.e. making money. He kept her from being the best person she possibly could even be in business and in music. Where the hell's Cassie's career at? Cassie was with Diddy when she was like 19. When she was young. She's in her 30s now, married with children. It took her over 10 years to fully pursue justice against this man. So not only did she have to go up against this machine, but she's going up against the whole world. She's risking her reputation. Look what happened to Jane Doe, a 27-year-old black college student just running in the fucking park. They tortured that woman for years. And she was just a Jane Doe. But Cassie took the chance. So don't tell me that she don't deserve that money, that I don't deserve any kind of money or any respect for what the hell I've been put through. Because my life will never be the same. It has not been the same. And it has taken me a very long time, a very long fucking time, to even get past to where I am right now. There are false accusers everywhere, but that does not and should not take away from those that actually were victims. When people file wrongful death suits, did anybody get mad at them? When George Floyd's family sued, was that a problem? Because who was getting that money? It's not George Floyd, he's dead. But you know what? Because of his death, his family has to pay and deal with consequences. They lost the person that was taking care of the home. He got kids. They got bills. Is it their fault that he got killed? Is it my fault that I got raped? But now I gotta try to figure it out. Although I barely even had the capacity to do so, just so that I can make it, just so that I can eat and have a place to stay. So when people say that bullshit, save it and y'all can keep it. Because until you've been through anything like this, there's no way you can tell me what I don't and do deserve. After I came back from Delaware that weekend, I really started looking for help. And that's when I found out that my job actually, Mount Sinai actually had the program SAVI. And that's where I found my therapist. So what a lot of people didn't know was during my lunch break at times, I was going down to meet my therapist. And that's actually how I even found out about Jane. She actually put me in contact with other organizations who actually had groups that I was able to be a part of. And in one of those groups, I actually met 2 survivors as well. And we actually are cool. We actually have a WhatsApp group. And we talk every once in a while to check on each other and to see how each other is doing. I remember that group was very special because I had went to 2 different groups. And one of the groups was like a music class and using like therapy through music. And it was cool because it was more like although you're there with other individuals, you're individually trying to use the instrument to like heal you in a sense. So you're not really talking. I mean, you can if you're singing or like saying, hey, that sounds good. It's more so about you guys being together in a group and individually using the music that we're playing to like soothe our souls. So after I did the musical therapy, I actually did end up being in an actual sexual assault group for survivors where we were able to communicate. I did the intake/interview, I passed. I made sure I made every single meeting. So initially when we started the group, I think there were maybe 4 or 5 people and a couple people dropped out. The 3 of us all had something in common, and that was the fact that they were drug-facilitated sexual assaults. And so some of our memories were gone from our, attacks or rape. One dropped out, like, the next week she didn't come back. That first day, we all had to tell our stories. And her story, she knew who her attacker was. She said, like, in that first session that she felt awkward because she had actually physically endured her attack. I remember every single thing. And she felt like she couldn't relate to the 3 of us. I felt really bad. But then there was another victim, another woman there as well, a survivor, I'm sorry. And she didn't know her attacker, but she was brutally raped in her house twice. The person came back to her house and raped her again. And because of that, she was scared to leave her home. In her mind, that the person would come back was watching her. And so because of that, if she had got groceries, they were always delivered. If she needed anything, everything was delivered to her house. But can you imagine being so scared to leave your house because someone's watching you, but then also staying in that same place where you were raped? So after that first lady left that next week, she left as well. I was like, this is why when I went to that first interview and the lady said she wanted to make sure that people could all go to the meeting and stay there and be part of the group. Because you do feel a sense of loss when somebody leaves a group. You want to feel that connection because part of the reason why you're there is because you've lost a connection. You don't have anybody that can relate to you. And so when somebody leaves a group, you're like, fuck, is it because of me? And part of me did think, was like, man, part of me's like, man, I wish I did remember what I had went through so that I could be there for her. I was able to connect with the other 2 females that were left in the group. Again, although we're all from different walks of life, we're all professionals. One was married, one was single like me, living New York life. But what's also interesting is that they actually knew their attackers. It's interesting because when you join these groups, sometimes they will suggest that you shouldn't, stay in contact after the group. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure why. They were definitely our lights in my lives because, it is very difficult talking to people who haven't been through sexual assault, just like it is talking to people who haven't experienced death. Everybody goes through traumas that are very difficult to go through. And it's important that if you are going through trauma that people around you cannot relate to, then you should definitely try to seek and find people who are like you as well, like through groups. And sometimes too, to be honest, talking to people and opening your mouths and being transparent about what you've been through can sometimes open up doors to new relationships, because there's a lot of women and females who have been sexually assaulted, who don't even know they've been sexually assaulted, or been through circumstances where they question too, like, damn, this is happening to me, this has never happened to me, I don't even know what's going on. And you just talk and you're like, damn, we relate in so many ways. And it becomes a healing journey or situation, and you just don't even know. That actually happened to me at work. I found that it was very therapeutic to talk about my situation, and the more that I talked about it, the easier it was for me to deal with. Prior to me going to therapy, and after I had that breakdown and I drove home to Delaware, I really had to ask God, what am I doing? Like, should I stay here? Should I leave? It should be a no-brainer to go back home, honestly. But like, something was pulling me in New York, and I really didn't know what it was. And so I prayed to God about it. I talked to him about it. I didn't know what I wanted his answers to be, because honestly, I was so confused. But the answer wasn't for me to go back to Delaware. So I stayed. I stayed in New York. I stayed in therapy. And to be honest, I was still very confused. So even though I was in therapy, I was staying in New York, I actually also wasn't even like staying in New York. When I say that, I was anytime that I could get a vacation or I had time away from New York, I was out. Which really didn't make any sense considering the fact that God had asked me to stay or told me to stay. But I was there was too many bad memories. I did not want to be in New York. And so I was like, well, the next best thing is travel. So I used to be going to Florida, Miami, to go with my family somewhere. Like, I just never wanted to, I was always looking for the next vacation. And, but to be honest, I mean, it was great, but every time I would come back home to New York, I would still have to like deal with that. I still had this heavy weighted feeling on my shoulders. I was getting better, but I knew I couldn't keep living life like that. And so I really had to start taking therapy very, very seriously. It wasn't until 2023 that I actually felt healed from my assault. It took about 7 years. And what I want people to gather from this video is that part of the reason why it took me so long to heal was because I had to do it on my own. I didn't even want to tell my family. I felt a sense of guilt. I felt ashamed because, I'm 27. I'm like, not to say that this doesn't happen to people who are older, but in my mind, I'm somebody who, I watch my surroundings. I don't even drink that much. And I'm telling my younger sisters, you gotta make sure you do this vigilant. And look what happened to me. I'll never forget when I even told my mom, because I didn't even tell her at first. She was actually in California. She's a nurse. She was working. And I remember being on my couch and I called her. I was like, yeah, I think I want to go see a psychic or see somebody because, I'm not really sure where my life is going right now. She had no clue. Child, not even a week later, my mom came to New York because she don't play that psychic shit. That's not something that, I was raised to believe in or even believe in. But honestly, I didn't even know. I didn't know where my world was going. I told her. And the first thing she told me, she said, why would you even be there? Now, mind you, when I went out for Halloween, I went to a gay club. And so when she told me that, I just looked at her. And I said nothing. Because I couldn't believe that was the first comment she had made. Not, hey, are you okay? I'm sorry. I was just like, so again, there I am feeling like guilty. I should have went there. Like, those are thoughts that are already in my head. But her saying that was like, okay, another confirmation. And then I remember telling my dad. And I didn't even want to tell him because he's a man. He's a traditional African man. And the only reason why I did tell him, because again, this is the Me Too movement. He was visiting from Nigeria. And he was commenting, I think it was a Kavanaugh case, and he was up for Senate or something in the Supreme Court. And a woman from high school, again, a professional woman, came forward and made claims about a sexual assault experience that she had with him. And my dad was like, he was very supportive of her. And I was like, wow. So it gave me courage to tell him about it. I even brought him to one of my therapy sessions. I mean, not that I expected much, but the fact that he even wanted to go because he was upset that I never even told him. So he went with me to the therapist so I could explain to him why I didn't tell him and what happened. And again, I felt like I was being investigated by the cops. Why wouldn't you say anything? Unless you were guilty. Or you had something to do with it. He insinuated that it was what I was wearing, how I was acting, and that possibly could have been the reason why I was attacked. And it ended up being more so about him and why I didn't tell him versus what happened to me. And honestly, not that I was necessarily shocked, but again, I was like, this is why I never told y'all motherfuckers to begin with. For years, I took it as them not pursuing my case to mean that they didn't believe me, that they questioned what I was saying. And it's not that I didn't appreciate and I felt like I got some sort of justice from the harassment and charges and the restraining order against my assailant. Finally, I felt like in that moment, they wouldn't entrust in me or even consider me to even help in this role. And you don't entrust in somebody unless you believe they have integrity. And it's not like I take being raped as a badge or a shining armor, because if it were to happen all over again, it's not something that I would want to happen ever. I would never wish this on anybody. To finally feel like people see you and that they not only see you, but they hear you. After calling out, after just feeling ignored, after just feeling like you don't matter, like there's no better feeling than feeling like you really matter. I matter because God chose this assignment for me and he entrusted in me to help other people. Because I don't look to man for validation. If it wasn't for God, there is no way that I would even be here sitting talking to you guys. Like, I was actually very scared to even discuss this or put this up. First, I went to God and honestly, God told me to do this shit, okay? I didn't go to God. Told me, you have to do this. This is part of my testimony because I don't think anybody would expect this of me or this situation of me because I think I present myself as somebody who's very strong and maybe even too strong sometimes, I don't know. And I also want to show people that it's not always the vulnerable person, the person you think that's most vulnerable or the strongest person in the room. Anybody could be a victim. And I never thought that I would be a victim of rape and sexual assault, but I want people to be very vigilant, especially in this day and age where there's so many different drugs that are running rampant that we can't control. Your trauma doesn't define you. If you choose to, you can use it to make you better or shape you into the person that God wants you to be. I think part of the reason why it took me some time to overcome my experience was because I didn't really understand why God chose this assignment for me. Because I felt like I had been through so much in life already. I realized that this situation forced me to truly rely on God. It forced me to be with him. It forced me to seek him. And it wasn't an overnight thing. Because at first, even though God told me to stay in New York, I was running away and going on trips every other weekend or whenever I could. And so what I learned in therapy is that I had other issues that I had to overcome and deal with. When I say a long time, I mean about a year in therapy before I even got to the point where I was talking about sexual assault. Because I realized there were so many things that I was dealing with internally that I hadn't really dealt with or even thought about that I had to get through in order to process or deal with what I was even going through. Because although this was my first time actually being raped, I had been placed in uncomfortable sexual situations before by people that were family or people that I thought were family. And how I reacted was the same way I reacted in the situation. But it wasn't until I started going to therapy and I started actually utilizing the tools that she gave me and doing the work that things started changing my life. I started really investing in my dreams and doing things that I wanted to do that I had stopped. Like singing, I started doing music again, even did a little solo thing. I don't even know where that video is at. I started still taking trips, but this time it was from a better place. It wasn't just because I was trying to escape New York. On my journey, I kept hearing this thing like, oh, well, it's because of how you dress, or it's because of how you look, blah, 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 blah. That, that's what may entice somebody to want to, do something to you. But I was like, that ain't fucking it. I said, these people are called predators, okay? Because who would even think to touch a child? You're sick in the head. It's just that simple. So it doesn't matter what I'm wearing, whether it be being naked or wearing these sweats I got on right now, you're still going to do what you want to do. I even did a photo shoot. I did like a sexy photo shoot. It was like a nice little classy one, but I did a sexy photo shoot for my birthday, which is not really my style. I was nervous as fuck for this, but it came out cute. One, I had to learn how to be my best friend. which may sound really like easy, but I realized I'm a best friend to other people more than I am to myself. Like I'm not that nice. I was not that nice to myself. I also learned how to be there for me first and not other people, especially for those who weren't really focused on me or who didn't give me the same energy. Like one thing my dad will always say is, look at somebody in your life, whether it be a friendship, whether it be your lover or your husband or your wife, like, are they giving more deposits than they are withdrawals? And I realized that in a lot of my relationships at that time, I was depositing a lot into the account and it was withdrawing. And it wasn't a fucking negative. So I had to pull back and I had to focus on myself. And to be honest, I don't know if I wasn't raped, if I would have really fully dealt with those issues. I mean, not to say that something worse could have happened. God, I beg, let this be my cross to bear, and let that be it. I had already been through so much and I didn't learn lessons that God wanted me to learn. This definitely taught me to learn how to value myself, because I really didn't value myself the way that I should have. I didn't, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really think of myself as a bad actress. I mean, I felt a little bit, but like, it's not something that I fully embraced. I'm actually a very shy person. I'm a fake it till you make it kind of girl. And I'm just like, I take whatever I have inside and I try to like exude it on the outside. But wasn't completely a confident person. I didn't appreciate myself. And if I don't appreciate myself, if I don't love myself, people really aren't gonna love you the way that you deserve to be loved. And that's what I really mean by living life to the max. And then another thing that was really important was I started saying no. And I wasn't really good at saying no. I'm always somebody that's trying to accommodate somebody. But sometimes it's okay. But if you're doing it all the time, you're shortchanging yourself. Okay, sis? Deposits, no withdrawals. Slow the fuck down. It's okay for you to say no and say, no, I want to do this. You don't always have to accommodate somebody else. Somebody's going to accommodate you, and if they're not really doing that, then that's somebody that you really want in your life, that's always withdrawing because they want to do something that they want to do. That means being you 100%, whether people don't like it or not, whether you lose friends or not. It means being honest with yourself. It means taking accountability. It means also having people who are close to you take accountability too. The same grace that I want God to bestow upon me, I also had to do the same for others. Dealing with rape and sexual assault is not easy. I was mad at God, I was mad at him, I was mad at me, myself. I was just mad at the world. I was just like pissed because I felt like I didn't deserve any of the things that had transpired. I was mad at my family and friends. And yes, they had been there for me, but I felt like as time went by, people just kind of forgot about me. And just like when you're dealing with death and there's these steps, there's steps to dealing with rape and sexual assault. It's not just like a, hey, that happened this week and then next week we're just having coffee and brunch. For some people, it's a lifelong struggle. People never get over death. And honestly, people never get over being raped or sexually assaulted. They carry into their marriages, their relationships, with their children, their coworkers. And so I just really want people to take that into consideration, that even as time passes by, it's important for you to continue to be there for your family and friends who have been affected by sexual assault and rape. It's okay for you to ask questions, even if you don't understand things. I had to also be vocal about how I was feeling to my family and friends. Because in the beginning, I wasn't really vocal. I expected people to be there for me in the same capacity that I've been there for them. And I realized that, girl, not everybody like you. Not everybody has the capacity to be there for themselves. You have to be okay with that, because there's gonna be times when you don't have it in you either. Getting calls every week from my friend Iyana just to pray, that saved my life. My sister coming to my apartment just to make sure I had a trash can saved my life. My mom calling me every single day just to check up on me saved my life. If I didn't have those people, if I didn't have Jane, if I didn't have God who brought all of it for me, there's no way in hell I would even be here speaking to y'all, even talking about what the hell is going on with me, because I'm a very private person. I want you to know that there really are people that really do care about you and that will care about you in your situation. And it's okay to go through that and still come back and live the life that you want to live. So I'm in Atlanta. Okay. I'm about to go on another vacation. I just came back from another vacation. I need to fucking slow down. But, you know, I'm living life to the max. But no, real shit, I'm living life to the fucking max. And, you know, I got like 1 more year of this and I'm trying to have kids. I'm not letting what happened to me stop me from pursuing my dreams. I did. And I had to call myself out of it. But God pushed me through that shit. He brought me people, some of my friends and my family, Jane. After hearing the stories of the other survivors, it really made me think in that moment about some of the things that they were saying and comparing it to what my assailant was saying as well. But the same way that the woman saw herself in the video with that man, and she looked like she was all over him and in love with him. And I'm not saying that, you know, what my assailant was saying was accurate, but the same things that he described in regards to my behavior is the same things that they experienced. And it just became like a full circle moment. All I really felt like in that moment was that I had just lost my memory, and I know I didn't drink much, but it was more than that. And I was only able to gather those pieces or put those pieces together because of what those women said. Because I didn't know that those were some of the same effects from drug-facilitated sexual assault or those symptoms. You put me in situations that will push me through that shit. Be graceful, have mercy, be kind, and most importantly, be kind to yourself.